As you can see from the title, New York City's Special Education Day of Infamy. All right? And I looked up the word infamy. It's a state of being well known for some bad quality or deed, which I think coincides with what I'm going to talk about. We all remember 9/11. Yes, 9/11, 2001. That certainly was a day of infamy. But there was another day of infamy. Ironically, it also occurred on 9/11, but it was 9/11, 1998, in New York City's Department of Education. On that day, at 9:37 a.m., the chancellor at that time, Rudy Crew, issued a regulation. It was 12 pages. I just happened to keep the most important page of all. And it dealt with the removal and transfer of principals for persistent educational failure. This set off a train of events that we still feel today. Now, what is persistent educational failure? Well, it's something that goes on and on and on. Cutting through the educational mumbo jumbo, let me give it to you straight and clear. Okay. It was he wanted to take the kids out of special education, and they were getting a lot of services, and put them back into regular education. And at the same time, slow down the kids who needed special education, keeping them out. So try to get everybody into the mainstream, regular education class. Nice guy. Well, what he was really proposing was something which was illegal, a quota system. You don't look at numbers and rates of percentages in and out. You look at the individual child. He reduced everybody to a number. When you reduce everybody to a number, it's like being in a penitentiary. They got numbers on their arms. It dehumanizes a person. All right? Now, also, I was able to obtain from the United Federation of Teachers a response to what Rudy Crew was doing. And I want to read that to you. It says, whereas there is widespread agreement that the mandate of the 1975 Education for All Handicapped Children to provide access to education for students with disabilities has largely been achieved, and that it is time to focus on improving outcomes for children with disabilities. Well, up until that time, things were pretty good, okay? But bam, he comes out with that statement. And now the union really replies. Listen to this. I'm quoting. Whereas some staff report being pressured by supervisors to inappropriately decertify large numbers of students with disabilities, or to refrain from referring students for special education evaluation, in clear violation of law and state regulations, which prohibit school districts from creating barriers for teachers to refer students suspected of having a disability. In other words, it's very simple. He wants to get them out of special education where they get a lot of services and decertify them. No, you're not entitled anymore, and just throw them right into regular education, and to keep the kids who really need it from going in. So the question now is, now this was 1998, what happened as a result? I could tell you, I don't have to see any paperwork, that it's still stuck in the minds of the principals. And I'll give you an example. Let's say you're in a court of law, right? We know the deal. An attorney gets up and he says something, and all of a sudden the attorney for the other side jumps up and he says, Your Honor, I object, I object. Judge says, on what grounds? And he says, because of this, that, whatever. Okay. And the judge says, you know what? I'm going to sustain the argument, which means the one who said that the guy was talking, the first attorney, no, we're going to do away with it. In other words, we are going to strike it from the record, and that's what he says to the stenographer, and he says to the jury, please disregard the last statement. Well, we know. Unless you get a lobotomy, you're not going to disregard it. It's still there, okay? So you have to keep that in mind. And so what happens is this. The principals are still under the gun. Oh, my God, I got to be very careful. I got to start counting numbers. And I will show you in part 2. This is part 1. I'm going to show you why it still continues today. All right? And by the way, I want to tell you something. I spoke to the head of the United Federation of Teachers, she's like not a vice principal, she's the vice president. And can't recall her name right now. It may come to me. And she said to me that the most difficult part of her job is to convince the parents to file complaints when their kids were getting basically screwed over, not getting the services. All right? In fact, I just remembered her name, Carmen Alvarez. Terrific person. But that was the toughest part. And, they're afraid to come forward. Heck, the principals were afraid. I'd like to continue. Back in 2004, I wrote a song entitled My Darling Special Ed. All right? I sent it to a local newspaper. They put it in. Nothing much came about it. It was the way special education was going down. Okay? And I got the idea from another song that was written way back in 1884 by a man by the name of Percy Montrose, My Darling Clementine. Now, both songs had something in common. It was about a disaster that was befalling children. In the first one, in Percy's, it was one child. And the other one, it's literally thousands. And you'll see about that in part two. So what happened was, with Percy's, it was such a goof. A girl, young girl, big feet, size 9 shoes. She's walking her ducklings to the water, and she trips on a splinter, falls in, she drowns. All right? And, but I got the idea for my song from that. And I'd like to sing it, and then talk about it a little bit. All right? And, of course, special shout out to Percy. All right, here we go. For better or worse. In a cavern, in a canyon, excavating for a mine, dwelt a miner, 49er, and his daughter, Clementine. In a courthouse of our city, contemplating future plans, sits the mayor and his chancellor, children's futures in their hands. Oh, my darling, oh, my darling, oh, my darling, special ed. You are lost and gone forever. Dreadful sorry, special ed. Procrastination, elimination, that is their final goal. To slow referrals in all the boroughs, this sad story must be told. Quota systems in referring violate the code of law. If the chancellor can't stop this, we must show him the front door. Complaints increasing, children weeping, due process at a crawl. Justice pending, services ending, have we reached that financial wall? With inclusion, more confusion, mainstreaming was too slow. Decertifying is satisfying, this will save them lots of dough. Pushing programs with 2 teachers in rooms lacking space. No illusion, just confusion, what a real total waste. Training films are suspicious, showing just the final cut. Fool the teachers, fool the parents, with the aim to save a buck. IEPs are the keys to help the troubled through. Interventions are reinventions, they contain nothing new. With standards tougher, the going rougher, and discipline falling down. Children failing, parents wailing, must we move to another town? Oh, my darling, oh, my darling, oh, my darling, special ed. Are you lost and gone forever? Dreadful sorry, special ed. Now, if you noticed, in the last stanza, I put it into the form of a question. Are you lost and gone forever? There's still that possibility. It's like a stage 4 cancer. You can't survive. All right? And in the next part, I'm going to explain what's going on. And let me tell you something. You don't have to have a PhD in special education or a master's degree or any kind of formal education. The mindset of a 10-year-old, you'll understand what's going on. And you know why? Because there was a comic genius back in the 50s who came out with a show, Art Imitates Life, Lucille Ball. All right? And she did an episode with her buddy Ethel, and it dealt with the candy factory. And the similarity between what happened in that candy factory and what's going on in special ed, you'll see very clearly. All right? So until we meet next time, part 2, it's about a 3-minute video. Just simply Google Ethel and Lucy in the candy factory. All right? Take care.